So some time ago, I reviewed a compilation cartridge for the Sega Genesis called Arcade Classics, which contained conversions of 3 classic Atari video games, Centipede, Missile Command, and Ultra Pong, aka Pong. In that review, I mentioned the near sluggish nature of the games and how that ended up having a detrimental effect on the overall quality of the pack. Now, just for comparison's sakes, here is a compilation cartridge for the Sega Master System called Arcade Smash Hits, released in 1992 and only in Europe. As a result of my living in North America and quite frankly not having European regioning stuff, the version being played here is based off an emulator, specifically the SMS Plus emulator for the Nintendo Wii, which works well enough for a quick review that serves more as a supplement to our prior review than its own self-contained thing. I mean, emulation's evil. Don't do... Oh, who am I kidding? So, Arcade Smash Hits comprises 3 classic arcade games, Centipede, Missile Command, and Breakout. Unlike the later arcade classics for the Sega Genesis, Arcade Smash Hits overhauls the visuals of the 3 games included. In fact, of the 3 games, Centipede has been changed the least, looking more like its arcade original than the other 2. Breakout looks more like Arkanoid than its original arcade game, and Missile Command now has more detailed graphics. The missiles are missiles, everything looks a little nicer than before. It looks like a newer game than it does an old game. It's a nice upgrade if nothing else. Now what isn't such a nice upgrade is the inclusion of annoying music in the background. I won't comment much on this other than I've heard more inspiring musical tunes come out of those ancient Tiger Electronic handheld units. So let's get to the games themselves. First up we have Centipede, the classic bug-busting, mushroom-slaying, worm-killing arcade shooter that originally had a trackball for a controller, but instead you have a directional button to move your turret. The control here is actually quite nice and precise. It doesn't have the slipperiness of the Genesis port, and it runs quite nicely actually. Some occasional slowdown will persist at times, but it never feels too sluggish. Plays brilliantly. Nice job done here. Next up we have Breakout, the classic brick-breaking game where you would break bricks with a ball and paddle. Breakout normally uses a paddle controller, and the D button is certainly no substitute for paddle precision. As such, I'm terrible here. You can press the 2 button to make your paddle move faster, but I found the paddle to be too fast already. It's certainly playable and you may get used to it after a while, but I prefer a paddle controller when it comes to these type of games. Or mouse control, that's equally as good. Finally, we have Missile Command, the defense game where you must use your 3 missile turrets to defend against missile attacks. Attack wisely or suffer the fate of grim death. Or a lame voiceover, whichever comes first. Unlike the Genesis version, which only gave you 1 missile turret to shoot with a la Atari 2600, the Arcade Smash Hits version of Missile Command is a more faithful iteration of the arcade original, giving you control of the 3 turrets proper. 1 button shoots, the other cycles through the 3 turrets from left to right, and it works well enough I think. Cursor moves slowly with a D-pad, it's not a trackball after all, but the game itself plays at a rather nice pace and again never feels sluggish. On a whole, for what it's worth, Arcade Smash Hits is a nice little compilation cartridge. Although the presentation feels beefed up due to the updated visuals, the games featured still play about as close to their arcade origins as can be made possible with a traditional gamepad, and they play well without any major slowdown or sluggishness, a stark contrast to the Genesis compilation that would be released years later. Although these games are featured in better, worthwhile compilations on other formats, Arcade Smash Hits is not bad for a cheapo pickup for the European folks and whatnots. And that's about it. Good night.